Okay, hi everybody and welcome à la Table Ronde, a show où we talk about everything, about politics. It's La Table Ronde of June 17 and I have a guest today who is really busy. It's Mayor Pierre Leroux from Russell Township. Thank you, Mayor Leroux, to accept this interview.
My pleasure.
And he knows what we're gonna talk. We're gonna talk about this petition that Mr. Agar has put on Facebook. He was a resident of Russell a long time ago. Now he's a resident of British Columbia. He's really far, but he really wants you to change the name of Russell Village. What's happening now?
So Mr. Agar made a post sometime last week bringing to light the history of Mr. Peter Russell, who was the whole, like, this area was based on that individual. So whether it's the township, the village, or the United Counties of Prescott Russell, it's all directly tied to him.
He was a slave owner and a trader of slavery, eh?
Yeah, so essentially he did own slaves back then, but he was also somebody who was fighting against the abolition to get rid of slavery. And that's that's the big issue, is that he was actually promoting it. So now that it's come to light, a lot of people are upset with this, understandably so. However, if you were to talk to most of the residents in the township, nobody had any idea who this guy was. I've heard the name before when we talked about the history, but I didn't know those specific details.
Yeah.
And now we're faced in a situation that with everything going on in the world today, obviously, this is coming to light, and people are asking to change the name.
Okay, if we have to change the name of Russell, we will have to change a lot of Russell in Ontario, because there's Russell Road, Prescott Russell, there's a lot of Russell. But what are you going to do, Pierre? What do you think about that?
There was, when I first heard it, I was surprised. I didn't know the history, and it caught me off guard. But then we found out that there's an online petition to change the name, and then alarm bells started going off. And then there was a petition against changing the name. And I saw my community starting to draw a line in the sand and, sharpening swords for this fight that was coming up. And, it scared me, honestly. I don't want this community to rip each other apart. I understand both points of view, but I think I found a middle ground that's acceptable. I'm bringing a notice of motion tonight at council. It'll be brought tonight, but it's only discussed at our next meeting in July 6th. But essentially what I'm saying is, everybody agrees on both sides, this guy was a bad guy. We don't want him to be representative of who we are. He never was, and I don't think he'll ever be representative of who we are. So what I'm suggesting is that we create a committee that will allow for residents to submit new names. But there's one catch. They have to have Russell in their name, either first, last, or middle name has to be Russell. Because that will allow us, as a community, to say, you know what, we condemn what happened. We're not erasing the past, because we'll always highlight.
It's history, eh? It's history.
It's history, and we don't want to erase the history. We'll just highlight this person as being this bad person for these reasons. And the community came together on this day and chose a new person to be our representative, our namesake.
And who it is?
Well, we don't know. That'll be a community decision, and I think it's a lovely idea because it'll bring the community together, in my opinion. I've had hundreds of people emailing me, sending me messages. Oh, name it after this person. This great philosopher, this great World War II veteran, or this activist for women's rights. All races, all genders. There's somebody named Russell. So there's a great opportunity there. And, I think everybody can agree this guy's a bad guy. So if we can agree to that, that's a common ground.
Do you think people will be people who signed the petition of Mr. Agar will be happy?
I think there's extremists on both sides.
Yeah.
The person that originally started the petition to change the name, not Mr. Agar, but the person who actually started the petition, she's reached out and she says, you know what, I think this is a great idea. You know,
Oh.
and this will be a teaching education opportunity. You know, it could be projects in school to teach our kids about racism and why this person is no longer a namesake and why we should be, you know, discrimination, you know, moving forward, taking a stand. You know, it could be something that's celebrated every year, the Russell Day, the day we made a change, you know, and highlight the past and the present and the future.
And how will you do that? Okay, you find the name, okay?
Yeah.
How will you do that?
So I'm proposing that we create a committee of residents and that residents who want to submit names, do their homework, do some history research, whatever, submit it to this committee. This committee will look at the options. I think the best scenario is actually open it up in the sense that you have the arena wide open, you have all these different booths that have all these people, you know, all the possible Russells. And people can go there and learn about an individual and say, you know what, I think that person represents Russell Township the best, or Russell Village.
But do you have to put it on paper, or do you have to ask the province?
Not at all. There's zero cost associated with this.
Okay.
The cost is putting a plaque, or you know, the cost of an event to do this. The costs are very minimal compared to what changing the name would imply. But for me, the financial impact of changing the name is very minimum. That could be fundraised, that could do all sorts of stuff. But it's really the unintended consequences of changing that name, because Russell Lions Club, Russell King Club, you know, Russell Restaurant, Russell Pro, everything in our community, which they thought they were naming based on the community, but by default now is tied to Peter Russell. So if you say, we're changing, and what do these organizations and people do? They have pride in their community.
Yes.
So now they're forced, well, if I don't change, am I going to be accused of the same thing? I'm supporting this guy. Or if I change, well, what about the name that I've worked so hard to build up all these years?
Yes.
So, you know, I think this is a good compromise. I see it as respecting the past, honoring our past, not washing it away, and moving forward. You know, I think it's a middle ground, but I ask people when we have discussions, what is it worth to prove your point? What are you willing to lose to prove your point? Because if we hold strong on both ends, then we're going to find ourselves with a divided community, and I don't think that's what Russell Township is about.
So do you know how many people have signed the petition of Mr. Agar?
Last time I saw, there was a few. I think there was maybe 1,500, 2,000.
And on the other side, people.
On the other side, there's more.
Okay.
There's definitely more.
Good.
But I think, you know, we have an opportunity. We have people in our own community. Mr. Agar, that's Vancouver. He can do what he wants. You know, I'm not worried about him. I'm worried about the people in our community who are contacting me and saying, I have a problem, and this is my concern. And, you know, I think we should listen to them. Should we automatically take their suggestion? No. But I want to listen, and I want to make sure they're heard, and then we can have an open conversation and decide where we want to go from here. You know, I see this as a teaching, educational opportunity for schools to do courses. And, you know, I want to stress that, you know, Russell Township has built a reputation the last few years to be one of the best places to live in Canada.
Yes.
And now I've heard from many people who have family members outside that, you know, they get a call, they get a text, oh yeah, you guys are the racist township, you know? It's a joke,
Okay.
but now you know, we've gone from one of the best places to live.
And the racist township.
Yeah, now this is the light that's shining on us when it's not the case. Is there racism in the township? 100%. There's racism, discrimination in every community on
Everywhere,
this planet.
yeah.
Anybody that tells you differently has their head buried in the sand. But I think that the reputation we built up as a loving community that works together, I think that should be highlighted. That's why I think that renaming ourselves or giving our municipality a new namesake will actually accomplish that.
And this guy was, it was in the 1700, eh?
Yeah, I was born in 17 something, you know, honestly, it's way before our time, you know, and it was a clerical mix-up. Russell was supposed to be named in another part of Ontario, and this area was another name. And when the paperwork got to the guy who was writing avec la plume, well, he mixed it up and he gave Russell to our area. He's never set foot here. He's never set foot here. He doesn't, there's no values attached to him that have anything to do with us.
And like we say, it's history. I'm sure it's Russell is not the only place that has a name of somebody who did something not so great.
Exactly. But I mean, now that we know, we actually can make a public statement about it. You know, just saying, you know, I could say, hey, you know what? I was always 250 pounds. I'm going to stay that way because that's always the way it's been.
Yeah.
But I took the opportunity to improve myself and decided that's not who I wanted to be, and I lost 100 pounds. So why can't our community make that same decision and say, this is not the representative we want. We want somebody else, and this is the reason why.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Leroux, for this interview. I am sure you're really busy.
Yes, I think this is about my 7th interview today.
Oh my God. Well, thank you very much. And folks, that's it. Thank you to have been there. We'll see you sometime soon. Bye-bye.